Hi, this is Master Kantbei. Welcome to this new replay commentary. We got one of my favorite guests here. This is Kantbei. You can now present yourself.
Everyone, it's Kantbei back here again for I think the fourth time on this channel, so always great to be a guest here. For those of you who are newer, I'm a very high rated Fog player at the moment. I think right now I'm number 6 on the global league rankings, but I fluctuate anywhere between like number 3 and number 8, depending on like how much I throw my recent games. So yeah.
So it's always good to have you around. So you are now in charge, and I know it will be a bit hard to get used to the new way of doing it through the website, but keep in mind we can move the action of the turn, but to switch the turn, we need to go on the turns themselves.
All right. So let's start off here. Turn 1, usual infantry builds. Nothing too unexpected so far, right?
True.
And up to like I think turn 3, everything looks normal. But then we're gonna quickly break that rule. And we'll explain, like you guys will see like what I mean. So begin capping, build more infantry. Still looks normal.
Now,
Here, Master Fun.
I'm wondering
Go ahead.
something. Why did you went for the building instead of the base?
So in theory, going for this building doesn't really slow you down up till this point, right? Because when it gets to my turn, I can always decide to break my capture of that city and capture the base. So by going towards the city instead of like what you did, a direct path to the base, it keeps my options, whether I want to like do the base skip opening or not, fairly open up till this point. Like if I move down immediately, that commits me to an opening. If I do this, I can either choose to capture this and do like the opening that I play this game, or I can play something more standard and just go for the base immediately. So that's just like the reason why I went for this city here. But the reason why I go for the city and like why this opening is viable, right? Because like a lot of beginners to the game and even like medium level players, they're always told like go for the neutral base first, never base skip, right? And generally speaking, that's good advice. The only reason it works on this map is because the neutral base is so far back. And because of its positioning, it's actually not in charge of any captures except like I think this city here, maybe this city. But this is why I also build the APC. So the APC will accelerate our captures on this side so that like whatever this base was supposed to be capturing isn't delayed at all. Like the APC will make sure we get all those cities like at the same time or faster, if I'm not mistaken. So what then becomes a trade-off between like capturing the city immediately or capturing the base immediately? The only trade-off now is, do you want 1k more money right now and in exchange you have 1 less infantry? Or do you want 1 more infantry but you have 1k less income? That's really the only difference between the two openings, because like you go for the APC following this capture. So that's kind of the theory behind like the base skip.
I like the idea. And now, I forgot to ask you, why did you pick Andy in this map? I was really scared because I chose Slash because of the forest and it seems like some kind of heavy terrain map, so I was like, I'm scared, maybe you will pick Lash and this will end up into a mirror match, but then you pick Andy. Why did you pick Andy?
Part of it is a comfort pick. I'm just really good at Andy in tier 3. Like he's my most consistent CO. Other COs that you can consider here, Lash is definitely good because of all the forest terrain. Um You can also go Sanja. Sanja has some ideas because like she can see through the forest when she uses her powers. Any kind of like gimmicky place where you try to play on the sides here will get shut down immediately. But you know, Sanja's also kind of terrible because of the bad luck and like everything about her, like her powers are kind of bad for the tier. So I just generally don't pick Sanja. Kindle is well, Kindle's always good. It's just that she doesn't seem to do that much more than Lash will, so she's still viable for sure. But I think like Lash is just stronger than her. Drake is probably bad. Double airport and the high income of this map means copter versus copter is gonna happen a lot. So like Drake's gonna be a little bit miserable. And then finally racial, right? The map's kind of open, so Rachel might have a hard time getting value out of her superpower. The only other thing though is like if both players play for the middle in like a super death ball style, then Rachel is pretty good because most of your units then are in the center, and if your opponent doesn't match you, then you'll just win like from the tactical fights before the powers are involved. If they do match you, then that means the missiles aren't gonna get diverted very easily, and then it's like the missiles might just nuke their entire army and then they die like after the powers exchange. So that's like one of Rachel's potential ideas. But you know, you're not sure like what your opponent's gonna do, so it's also kind of risky.
And now, I got another question because you are Andy and you are a very strong player. I know it because I fought you many times. And you are in the top ranking, so I can attest you are a good player. So, good players, do they tend to think about using Andy power? Because my thought process while I use Andy is spamming the power because it's faster earlier in the game and it doesn't have any day to day. And I know its super is much better, but there's a downside of it, a darker side of its super is the fact that you need to injure yourself before using it because most of the time people against you or in general against any seals if they are good or skilled they will tend to kill off unit. This is a trend. You tend to kill off unit because unit count is important. So is it good or bad to rely more on the power over the super despite having a better super but not always getting a good value out of the super?
I think in general, the super is far preferable. The small power does have its place, but generally speaking, you pop the small power when you want the plus 10 defense and you feel like your formation might get broken if you don't use it. So it's kind of like you're in a bad spot and like you need something now or you lose. Then like the small power can be used. But in general, like it's better off holding for the superpower. And it is difficult, right? Like versus strong players, like they will always go for kills against because his hidden day to day. This isn't written down anywhere. But his hidden day to day is kill my units or else in 10 turns you will regret it. Right? So
Yeah.
against any other CO, right? Like you can just, go for crippling first strikes and then, they're either forced to repair or it's like a useless unit for a really long time until you get like a unit count advantage and then you win anyway. Andy doesn't work like that, right? Like if Andy you leave all of his units at like 2-3 HP, by the time he gets his superpower, you're completely screwed. Right? So that's kind of like what's going on there.
This is why I think it's super, even if it's really, really strong, it's really, really good. I don't want to downplay it. I just feel like it's really hard to get value out of it. And in my own experience, at least, most of the time I see people using the super, or when I used to use the super, I say that because right now, as a handy player, I'd rather spam the power. When I see the super, usually people have LT units. They do all their engagement and then they pop the super because then the value is good. to use the super because usually when it's super time, if the player against Andy is smart enough, he will have killed units. So most of the army of Andy is LT at the time of the super if the other player was smart enough. That's why I'm still not sure about this super. You see?
Yeah, I get it. And it is definitely like kind of high level skill to be able to like keep your units alive as Andy. You're always walking that tightrope balance where you want to be aggressive to like make trades so that you're charging powers, and but you're not so aggressive that you're losing units. So all of that is down to like being very aware of like how far forward you can be as Andy, like knowing all of your like KO hit thresholds and like making sure you're not overextending, which is not trivial, right? Like all of these skills are like what makes really good players. So Andy works at a very high level, but it's also like very easy to like screw up with him.
Yeah. So let's keep going here.
All right, so I now start capturing my base like a full turn late than what it should have been because of like that's what the opening calls for. Other thing to note is like loading the infantry into the APC immediately. And the reason this works is because we time the APC build so that an infantry capturing a city 3 tiles away from it finishes its capture the day the APC is built. So if you want to do like APC openings on Advance Wars, you're always going to be looking for those kinds of patterns to know like if an APC build is potentially viable. Like that's one of the first things you want to look for. Is there a timing you can do where you finish a capture of a backward city, and then you can build an APC immediately the turn that it finishes capturing, so that you can do the immediate load the next turn. And then as we can see, the rest of my infantry do their own thing, just doing normal capping things. And then the APC moves forward and unloads. And at the same time, we should note that this infantry, 3 tiles away again from where it stopped, can now load in the next turn. So this is like how you make very efficient use of your APC. Okay. Lash's turn. So Master Kantbei went for the tank first opening, fairly standard. I don't think it's anything objectionable. Recons are also pretty fine on this map. Um, this is okay. Moving the infantry towards the tower, builds a recon and then 2 more infantry. All right. Decent builds. Pretty much what you'd expect, I think, versus anyone not crazy. So by definition, I am a bit crazy.
And that's funny because I tried your opening, but it was a bit different because I haven't seen the replay yet. So the way I did it, I did it wrong because I didn't add the fonts for muting fast. So instead, I built a medium tank, and that guy, man, you slapped me around with break-ons and thing. It was terrible.
That is like one of the risks of this opening. I feel like if they go like really heavy into recons and tanks and then just like suicide everything into your infantry, which is like technically it's really risky because they don't know like what you have so far. But if they don't care, they just want to charge into you. Then this build can fall apart because like the heavy tank won't come out in time to like answer the immediate threats, and there's only going to be one of it. So you're gonna have to like give up ground somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's like kind of like the risk of this opening, but it will definitely catch people off guard. Like if they let you pull it off, it's really funny, and you can also win.
This is true. One moment. So let's keep going there. Are you here?
All right. Yep,
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Okay, so Lash's turn. Again, fairly normal captures. I think this comp tower is maybe a bit too early. Um, so the infantry here can move to this tile and then aim for the capture of this city much faster. This tower is never really going to get contested. I think it's really difficult for them to try to contest it long term without losing a lot of stuff. Second thing is like this infantry here moving down straight can capture it the turn following, right? So like unless you're expecting a fight to happen in like the immediate turn afterwards, right? Like there's really no point in this capture as compared to like getting this. So it's just like going down, I think 3 or 4,000 in the opening if you calculate it, because you just time like how long it took you to capture the city, compared to like if you just went here immediately to capture it the turn following. And then like now this infantry looks like it has nothing to do because its job got taken by this infantry here, right? So that's just something to think about when you're moving your infantry around. Recon and tank move out. I think this tank is a bit too scared. Your lash against Andy. So like the tank, as long as it can sit on a city tile or a silo tile, it should feel like very safe. And like Andy is rarely gonna want to like fight you with your 130 attack, 140 with like tower, right? And then if you get the second tower, you have 150 attack. You're basically advanced wars 1 max on a city. Like very few people want to take that fight. So you could be way more aggressive with this tank, definitely.
That's good to know.
Artillery,
That's good
yeah,
to know.
artillery.
I like Lash a lot because she's very underrated. She's really hard to play, but I never overthink about how strong she truly is.
Yeah, Lash is fairly insane. The only reason like she's not played more is because Kindle is so good, and a lot of the maps are basically where Lash is strong. Kindle is also strong. So like there are very few maps. Like I think this is one of the few maps where Lash is pretty good and Kindle is not that much better. So like she becomes viable. Another map that's very recent in the global league pool is Vandalism. I think Lash has pretty good ideas there, although they also banned Kindle in tier 3 anyway, so Lash is like the choice if you want to go aggressive. Okay, so thing to note about my ATC here, I unload on the mountain. That's just to get more vision, because why not? And because this infantry's job is going to be capturing this city. The only time it won't go for this city is like if I see a recon super nearby, and like putting my infantry on the mountain gives me information as like whether a recon is nearby or not. It's not perfect. Like if the recon is hiding in the forest here, or like it's just out of vision, it's possible like I don't see it at all, and I go for the capture, and then I get hit, right?
Yeah.
But if your opponent is not playing as sharply as they should be, and it's a little also a bit luck based because APC opening is not that common here, so it's unlikely that they'll be playing the recon as if expecting you have an infantry on this mountain already, because the timing is way too fast otherwise. If you compare it to the other side of the map, where you did like a fairly normal opening, right? You're nowhere near close this mountain. So they kind of have to be expecting the APC in order to be like hiding the recon, which is unlikely. But if it does end up happening, then it's possible to get hit. But we're just trying to again maximize the information we have, so we can try to make the best choice we can make, knowing what we know or knowing what we should know. And then because so my infantry goes for that capture, and that's just because I don't see anything to disrupt it. I know from like playing this map previously, unless you have a recon here specifically, there is no way you have infantry to like contest this capture. And even if a recon comes out and hits this infantry, the fact that that happens immediately gives me information about what you did the first 7 turns of this game. Like there are some maps where I can tell you everything my opponent did just from like showing me one vehicle in the opening. So like this is not completely wasted, even though it gets hit potentially by a recon. That will still tell you stuff about what your opponent wants to do. Okay, I now build 2 recons. Um, instead of I didn't have enough money for the Neo tank this turn. If you're playing as a top player, you can actually build a day 7 Neo tank, like APC into day 7 Neo tank. Bottom player, you have to do the 2 recons first. The reason why this is okay is because next turn we're gonna have 25,000 anyway, which is enough for a Neo tank and 2 infantry. So like in the end, like the build still is kind of fine. Also to note, the Neo tank is blind because it has like one vision, right? So having the double recon is really good. If one of them dies, there's still another one to help the Neo tank navigate and like hit stuff.
I think the Raycons are like
So
the
again,
best unit to support the Nia tank.
yeah, for sure. I mean, other than infantry, right?
Yeah.
But for vehicles, it's definitely like the recon. So again, I don't really like this movement by you. I think it's just way too passive. You're still Lash. Like if you just park tanks or cities here, it's still really scary to engage. Like you could have parked your tank here. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, you could have parked your tank directly here, and you would have been fine. You can park the recon here. So in general, I just think you have to be more aggressive with your vehicles if you're Lash, especially if you're playing against Andy. Because Lash has a really sharp timing, where she's strong until like the first superpower, and if she's not in a good position to like win the game from that, it gets harder and harder to win because she has her powers don't scale that well. Lash's powers are directly scaled with how much heavy terrain there is. So heavy terrain meaning forest, cities, silo tiles, HQ. If there are very few of those in the places where you're fighting as Lash, she very quickly runs into like her maximum power ceiling, and then it's all downhill from there because every other CO will just get stronger as the game progresses, but she doesn't. Um, Infantry build a copter. I think that's fairly okay. So on my turn, we just keep doing our captures. I go for an aggressive center capture. Hindsight, maybe not the safest capture I could have done since there's no vehicle backing it up. But you know, you just have to try something sometimes and see if it works. And then we see the Death Ball, the tank to end all tanks. It's a Neo tank on day 8. I think like this opening is particularly better for Andy because Andy's heavy tanks are like really good. As long as like his stuff doesn't die, right? Like we talked about this earlier in the video. As long as his stuff doesn't die, like his superpower gets value. If you hit his like heavy tanks and they don't die, it's a lot of charge, meaning he gets his superpower faster. But also like it's something that's really scary hovering in the background. And then he doesn't even have to spend money repairing it. So for all of those things, like that's why Andy really likes heavy tanks, and then getting one out really fast benefits him a lot more than other COs. Still runs into the problem we talked about earlier. Like it's possible that you get harassed to death before this. You can get this Neo tank off safely. You might have to like build tanks before this. But getting a fast heavy tank as Andy is never really bad if you're not punished for it. Turn 8. So Lash goes for the predictable attack on my infantry in the center. I lose that, which is unfortunate. This city is still not getting captured. So I think at this point it's probably 2,000 down, I think. Or 3,000 down. Like you should have 3,000 funds more than you do because you haven't captured the city yet. Artillery heading towards the center, copter heading towards the center. You build an AA, which is kind of like your signature at this point, I believe.
Yeah.
More infantry builds. I think like it's fairly dangerous to leave the tank and the recon right next to the city. I think it might have been better if your recon attacked from this side instead of here. That's just because if there is a tank, it's far more likely that my tank can hit this tile than it can hit this tile.
Why?
If my tank hits your tank from the city, you have the artillery covering anyway, and there's a good chance you kill. Unless I
Oh,
have two tanks in range, right?
yes.
So that's just a slight mispositioning error. Um, it's rarely gonna like win or lose you a lot of games, but there are times when like that initial trade going unfavorably can cause your game to feel really bad to play. So that's it's always good to like optimize these kinds of things.
That's good to know. I didn't thought about that. I was like, road, plane, who cares? I'm last.
All right, so I finished capturing one tower. I'm starting to capture the other one. And again, like the thing I told you earlier about how like there's no point capturing the towers too early, still applies here, right? Like it's day 9. You've had this tower for I think a turn now.
Yeah.
Our vehicles still aren't fighting, right? So like you got an infantry kill, yes, but you get that kill anyway without the tower. So like the tower didn't help. Whereas my towers are going to be times exactly as like when my first vehicle wants to fight yours. So that's kind of just why like you generally don't want to cap the towers too fast. I think starting the capture day 7 or day 8 is perfectly fine for most maps, unless like there's a specific gimmick where you have to get it now or you never get it. But those are generally pretty rare. I delay your capture. Maybe not the best move because I for sure lose this infantry. If like
I
even if you
was
just hit
about
back,
to
I'm
ask
pretty
you
sure you kill
that
it.
question. Why did you do this? Because as we were playing, I was like, he really did it. What? What? I was shocked because now I can kill off your infantry with mine, I think. I'm not quite sure 100%, but I think I have the firepower, right?
Yeah, I think this infantry should be able to kill it if it goes here. This infantry hitting back from the city, I think, is a luck roll. Maybe not because you get the second tower, and then like you have the recon X tank. The reason am somewhat comfortable doing this is down to two things. First, I have the Neo tank right in range of that infantry. The recon is already positioned, so like I will have vision for sure. And it's unlikely that you have enough things to like kill the recon and kill the infantry and stop this APC from dropping an infantry on the mountain, which will basically become a free recon if I can get that off. And then there's all these other infantry ready to support and give vision, even if I lose those two things. So like unless you have two artillery or something immediately positioned, um, there's a good chance my Neo tank can first hit anything that's going to come after this infantry, and it will be at the end an even trade. But I'm slightly better off because I'm delaying your capture at the cost of one infantry, which is like 1,000 funds, right? And by doing this move, I already delayed 1,000 funds as well. Like it will now take you an extra turn to capture this. So economically, like it's an okay trade, even though you're going down unit count. The second reason why I think this is fine, I have an APC, and I'm pretty sure you don't, because you showed me our tank and a recon earlier. Because I have an APC, it's always going to be very easy for me to ferry new infantry towards the center or like wherever I need it, which is like one of the advantages of this opening. Like I will never really run into a scenario where I don't have infantry, unless like I lose all of them and the APC, right? Because I can just ferry units super fast. Like it will move at twice or thrice the speed of a normal infantry just walking. So I'm okay losing an infantry to delay the capture, and then like I can surprise you with the Neo tank, and I can like have options the next turn. So we build two tanks following the Neo tank. This is very important. You don't want to just spam heavy tanks. Um, you still need like a lot of smaller, lighter tanks, copters, AA, to support this Neo tank eventually. If you just try to like spam heavy tanks all game long, it's very easy to just die to like a swarm of like recons or a swarm of tanks, just killing all your infantry, killing all your recons, blinding the heavy tank, and then they'll be the most miserable things in the world. Like it will feel like you're in a horror movie, but the Neo tank is the one getting chased, not the enemy. So vision is very important. supporting vehicles are very important.
I just picture in my mind Niatang running away. Poor Niatang, man. He felt oppressed. He wanted to run away.
Okay, so yeah, you do end up going for that hit. You try to finish your capture. Your recon moves forward. Your copter moves forward. Your tank moves forward. Because like the recon was placed here earlier, I know exactly where artillery is, and then I can just get a safe hit in.
And when I have seen that Niatang, I was shocked. I was like, what? What? How did this happen?
That's a fairly common reaction. I played this against a really high-rated player earlier this week. He was also like 1200 in Fog, and he just was completely caught off guard by this. He just didn't know how to react, and I ended up winning that game pretty easily. So yeah, it's definitely not common. Like I'm not surprised that this took you off guard. I'm basically the only person who plays this opening today because I invented it. The HPC opening, I'll note, and like the base skip, I didn't make that first. Like that was Zeronix who taught me that. But I improved on it, I guess you could say, by with like the Neo tank. So yeah, this style is very weird.
So here I bought a second copter because here's my explanation. I see your new tank, I don't have the money for a medium tank, except if I base skip, and I hate base skipping, it's wrong. You will lose in the unit count, and I know you are a better player than me, so I need to at least have as many units as you do. So I bought a battle copter because it's faster than indirect to compete with the Nia tank. Now I know it's not the perfect counter. It's just something until I have the money to have something to compete with your Nia tank. This is why I bought the battle copter because artillery are good, but they are so slow it can take them like 4 turns to reach the battlefield, and even then you need to be lucky enough for a Nia tank to just go in range.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying, and I don't object to like the copter build at all. I think like if your opponent survives with this opening that I did at this point, and like you fail to like do like serious economic damage to me, like you delayed one capture in the middle, but like that's not really such a big deal. Um, it's fairly hard to figure out what to do, right? Like the um there are basically no good answers for you at this point. Like by the time you see this new tank and you haven't already like countered it by doing damage early on and forcing me not to do this, it can be really hard to answer, right? Because like what can you do? Either number one, you build a second artillery, and like I would argue even building the first artillery was kind of like non-standard. I don't think a lot of people generally build artillery really fast on this map. So like one artillery is not gonna cut it. The reason why, it's hard to wall, right? Like you need to have a wall 2 units deep in order to protect this artillery. The reason why I say that is because a new tank with 2 towers will one hit KO anything. It will kill a tank on a city with one hit. So like even if you put a tank here, for example, this recon didn't exist, and like you have an artillery behind it, the neo tank can just kill the tank on the city, right? And then a recon or a supporting vehicle can hit the artillery, and like an artillery at like 5 or 6 HP, maybe 4 HP, depending on like the luck roll, is not gonna do that much to a neo tank. It's gonna take like 2 HP. 8 HP neo tank is perfectly fine. It can either heal, or if you're Andy, then it can just stay as it is, hope that it doesn't die, and then wait for your superpower to heal up for free. So yeah, it's fairly difficult to like play with artillery here. The second option that you talked about earlier, get a fast MD, but you didn't have the money for it, so you just get a copter instead. Again, I think this is reasonable. You just needed to find like a way to answer this neotech somehow. I think copter is probably your best choice. And then you get like an MD the turn after. But yeah, it's really hard at this point for you to like get back in the game, which is why I like this opening. Assuming like you don't get unlucky getting a super aggressive player in the early game, it can be really funny to like watch your opponent scramble to answer a neo tank, and then your happy death ball just goes around killing everything. So because I know where the artillery is, I just kill it. I load an infantry, put it on the mountain for more vision.
I
I'm
got
just
a
rolling.
question for you. Why did you
Go ahead.
attack the 10 HP instead of the 6? Knowing I am at 6 HP and you have 2 tower, you should be able to finish off my 6 HP and in the same time reducing my unit count. Why didn't you do it?
You're talking about the infantry here, which disappeared, right?
Yeah,
So basically, I didn't want to lose my recon. Your artillery was right there, and you could have shot my recon. It's probably fine for me to like actually kill the infantry and delay the capture. But I just felt like I wanted a lot more vision. Even though I have like a lot of infantry here, you can never really have too much vision when you're playing with a heavy tank, especially since none of my smaller vehicles were around immediately to support it. Like they're still streaming towards the front. So that's basically why I did what I did. I think it's also fine to like kill the infantry. I just wanted to keep my recon alive. Um, Part of that is also like versus Kindle and Lash especially. I usually like to keep my recons because infantry versus infantry against those COs is really hard. Like you're probably gonna lose if they're ever sitting on terrain because they have 130 or 140 attack. It's kind of like fighting Sammy. A recon helps set up 2-hit KOs on those kinds of terrains without losing any infantry HP, and not letting your infantry take any damage is a good way to keep them alive as Andy. Right? So that's part of like why I want to keep this recon alive. All of my tanks are streaming towards the center still. I build an AA because I kind of recognize at this point my army's fine. Unless like you also have a Neo tank, which is unlikely. The only thing that can threaten this Neo tank is a copter, right? So like an AA will answer that. A couple more tanks will like help shore up everything and make it difficult for your tanks to kill my recons for free. Also gives my Neo tank more vision, helps hunt down infantry so the Neo tank can kill things it wants to kill instead of like infantry. And then we can already see like at this point, I already had 3K because of like my APC opening. So yeah, if they don't send a recon towards your HQ to stop the APC, you can really get super far ahead in income. And like this city especially is really important because this city, and the two middle cities, these are the 4 cities which always get fought over on this map. If you lose all 4 of those, you probably lost the game.
yeah,
It's hard to come back.
true. It's more than art. It's impossible.
Well, if your opponent throws hard enough, anything's possible.
Yeah, true. Facts.
You actually, oh, okay, I see. You one hit the recon because you have 2 towers, right? And you also have like plus 10 attack because you're Lash on planes. So you have 130 attack. 130 attack is always a kill on a recon, I believe, or it's a high luck roll. The reason I know that is because I played Grim before, so it's the same dynamic with Grim. 130 attack, and he usually kills a recon.
I think it's like 91 to 100.
Yeah, so it's like a fairly high luck roll.
Me too, I play a lot of Grim. I like Grim a lot. I'm bad with him, but I like to play him a lot.
So my turn, I just keep hitting your tank. I think it's a slight mistake to hide the artillery in the forest and not cover the tank. Because I already know where your artillery is moving, there's no point trying to hide it. At this point, you just want to form a wall that's as sturdy as possible to maybe try to ward off the Neo tank. And just try to cover your things with artillery and kind of just pray that I can't find a wall break, right? But like sending your units in that's uncovered by the artillery is a good way to lose faster because like now you're bleeding vehicles to like a Neo tank and it's getting value when you shouldn't be giving it, free value in a sense. I unload the APC backwards to protect the infantry. Moving it forward would get killed by infantry for sure. And then like this infantry protects this tank from being attacked from this side. if you have a tank there. I don't know really. It also gives me vision on this forest tile, which I want, so I can kill that infantry. And then we just keep moving towards the center. Because I feel like the center is really important on this map. If I think like playing for the sides is ultimately a mistake. If you commit too many vehicles to the side and you lose the center, I think you put yourself in a bad spot. The reason I say that, if we split this map in half, there are 4 contested cities. If you win the center and you win both cities, but you lose both sides, you're even on income. But you have a geographic advantage or a positional advantage. Because all of your units are in the center and their armies probably split up in half because they tried to win both corners, it's very easy for you to move your entire army towards one corner, threatening to either destroy their army there or forcing it backwards into some really stupid defensive position. You can then take the city, go back to the center, and then do the same thing to the other side. And like if they try to like match you by heading towards the center, then you have your whole army smashing into theirs on the center, and then maybe they have a second smaller army here trying to reinforce. But if they don't time the engagement very well and like have these two halves attack at the same time, it's very common on like high level games to just fall to a tactic where they'll use infantry to like wall off half of your army from attacking because it's split up, and then all their vehicles go kill half the army. And by the time you can like clear off that infantry, this army's already dead, and you probably lost way more. And then like this army can just go kill the other half, right? And then that's pretty easy way to win the game. So yeah, that's why I really like playing for center here. I don't really like playing for the sides. I dived my recon a bit deep, but I felt like it was okay because like you had a lot of vehicles on this side, so I felt this was safe. I don't go for this capture. Realizing there's so many infantry around, I'm probably gonna lose the infantry if I try anyway. So there's no point. And on 2 towers, 120 attack is always a clean kill. This is important for you guys that are watching. If you don't want to memorize all the thresholds, 120 attack is one of the
Sorry about that.
no worries. So at 120 attack, it's always a clean KO, meaning even if you do minimum damage, 2 units of the same type will always kill a unit on a city. So at 110 attack, this is not the case. It's a low luck roll. So I don't know if you guys might have noticed, but like if you ever try to like go for a 2-hit KO on a tank on a city with 2 tanks, there's a chance it fails. Actually, like 33% of the time it will succeed, and then the rest it will fail at 110 attack. 120 or 2 towers makes it always a kill, no matter what, as long as those are full HP tanks, right? Same logic for like infantry versus infantry. And this is actually the reason why like Max is kind of good at being aggressive, because he's one of the few COs who can do that without any towers. Von Bolt is the same thing. He can get kills on cities with 1 tower. Very few other COs can. Hawk can also do it against anyone not Von Bolt or Javier, right? This is also why like towers are so important in Advance Wars to like stop the game from stalling. So COs like Adder, for example, or Cole, or actually like any CO really, like without the firepower boost with 1 tower, because on Advance Wars by Web, the power gives you plus 10 attack, plus 10 defense generically. That means like 2 of your tanks can surely kill anything on a city, right? So like that makes attacks way more possible, and it's because of that dynamic that games in Advanced Wars by Web don't stall out as much as it could be. So powers are really important. And I take that hit, maybe not the safest hit ever, but it is what it is. I also built a copter at this turn. I think it was just like I looked at the board and realized I have everything else I need, so I might as well just get a copter for extra unit count. And anyway, I'm rich, so it's fine. So turn 11 for a lash. You keep the copter around to hit the Neo tank. I think it's quite risky to try this. You should be expecting like an AA to be here soonish. But
I knew AA was coming, but I thought maybe I'm wrong. I thought removing away 2 HP from the Nia tank could help me out to survive longer in the center because that 8 HP Nia tank is still very, very strong. And I will go further with this. I still believe Andy Bauer is really good, and if I left your Nia tank at 8 HP, then my Battlecopter was just a waste. So I was like, if I at least drop his Neotank at 6 HP, even with the Hyper Repair, he won't be back at full HP.
Right. Hmm. I guess it's understandable from that perspective. The problem is like you already lost a tank basically because of this. Um, you're probably not gonna be able to win the center fight anytime soon. Like your artillery and like your heavy tank is too slow. The copter is too far back. This copter is about to die. This tank is not going to be active for a lot of terms. So really, to answer like two of my tanks, which can go around hitting everything for free, and like the Neo tank can just watch them, right, like a mother hen. You have one artillery and an AA, and maybe a copter, but I have an AA, right? So like there's no way your unit composition is going to hold up to mine long term. So you just needed to pull back, I think, and like accept that you're gonna lose like the center now. Kind of like give yourself time to recuperate, build up like some extra tanks, try to like amass an army that can challenge mine for the center. Maybe it doesn't work, right? Like, but I think that's your best play in this position, which is already like kind of bad. So yeah, it's a hard position to play though. I wouldn't want to play your spot. Like if I was in your position, I'm not sure how I would answer a Neo tank either coming out from like day 8 to like just hit everything. It's pretty crazy.
It was already a bloodbath, and I knew I already lost the moment I have seen that Neotank.
Okay, so you build a second MD here. I think I wouldn't go for a second MD. Maybe just more tanks, honestly. But then again, like you do want to kill my Neo tank. You don't want to keep it like at 1 HP, right? So I guess this is okay. Yeah. So I just start killing everything, and then this is like what I said earlier. Like a recon and an infantry can help preserve the infantry's HP to set up kills on a city against Slasher Kindle. So this principle in play right here. And because like this infantry is at full HP, even if you attack me from the city, I don't think this infantry dies. Um, Probably doesn't die, right? Like 150 attack, I'm not sure. Maybe it's a luck roll.
It's 8 HP.
Okay, so then yeah, it stays alive. If I try this with 2 infantry, this probably dies, right? So like I have 1 infantry alive now. That shouldn't be alive if I didn't go recon. So that's why recons are important versus Slash and Kindle. Also versus Sammy. And then here we see like my tanks just start going ham on your infantry because I'm just like, okay, there's no way you have anything, right? Like I can just take all these hits. Then I kill the infantry, I kill the copter, I position my infantry on the city in case like you have a tank, right? Like I don't want to let you first hit my tank on a road from a city with 2 towers. That feels like a very bad trade. Call me crazy.
Said by a guy that opened up what's in the attack. And the worst of that, it worked.
Anyway, there's a fine line between genius and insanity, and that line is called success.
Oh my. You see,
so another copter and tank here.
you see, because of your opening, I wanted to play Lash again because I didn't feel like it was the right game. I feel cheated on. Even if it's fair, I felt cheated on.
Okay, you take a couple of attacks here. I think this is a good move. You're keeping your vehicles alive, like trying to like amass enough strength to really challenge me. What I don't like is sending your infantry at the bottom to like attack my infantry, because all of these infantry are just gonna die now, giving me more unit count. And like you can't really afford that because you've actually already lost too much. I think you don't want to be throwing away infantry like this. These attacks here are fine, I think, because like you have a copper and AA backing it up. The MG can switch to this side fairly quickly, I think. So like this is potentially an okay engagement for you. These are definitely not. And then here we're our infantry kind of just like looking at each other, and you're all admiring that fact that I already have a city because I went with an APC and you didn't. You build a third MD. I think I don't like this one. You really just need like more tanks and more copters at this point. Because the problem with like heavy tank spam, as you'll see in this game, is like number one, they're blind and you don't have recons, right? So it's really hard for them to like get good fights. The second thing is like I'm just gonna have too many tanks and copters that it's actually possible for my one Neo tank with a power to beat three of your medium tanks if I have enough vehicles supporting it. Like a common tactic is like I use two of my copters to damage the medium tank first. Neo tank comes in, kills it in one hit. I think actually copter Neo tank is enough already, but also depends on terrain. And then like using my vehicles or like my infantry, I just wall around the Neo tank. So like your MDs, if they're not literally right next to each other, they cannot counter hit my Neo tank. And then like that's how I will eventually like win against the three medium tanks, right? Like so this is not a very cost effective build anymore for you.
That's good to know, but at that point I already lost. But that's very good to know. This is good insight.
So it's my turn again. Like we're just setting up kills here. We're gonna capture a city because if I win that city as well as this city and the two middle cities, I win the game. So you know, winning is good. I start capturing the middle city. I move onto the mountain for more vision, and I see that you have an infantry in the forest. So I'm not too scared because like it's really hard to kill a unit on the forest on a mountain. I mean, this is kind of like a little bit suspicious for me. I think I'm diving a bit too deeply with all my tanks. Um, but I don't think I get punished for this, and that's partly just because like all your infantry died.
And I'm
I
blind.
think you didn't have that much vision.
I'm blind. Let's say it. I'm blind.
Okay, it's now your turn. So this game will actually only last until turn 14. So we're actually almost at the end, which shows like this build is like fairly powerful if done correctly.
True.
Yep. So infantry dies. You hit my recon, also getting kills. Fairly good trades here on in the top right.
I
Here
was
is
proud.
questionable, I think. Yeah, like you're spending a lot of infantry hits to kill mine. Okay. Yeah. You kill the AA pretty good. I think at that point you should have built a copter, like knowing that my AA died. Um but you build an AA instead of a recon. I don't like that so much. So a key concept of like how you win games or tactical fights, right? It's not just always going to be about just having more stuff than them because sometimes it's hard to get more stuff, right?
Yeah.
A key idea is like if you recognize they have a weakness in their composition. So this is usually means like if they have no AAs, right, then copters can just kill everything. Or so that's what I mean by weakness in composition. A unit which has no answer because you killed the answer, and not always your opponent will let you kill it or will only have one counter. So you also this is why recons are important, right? Recons will tell you how many of a certain unit they have, or it will give you information, right? And you can use that to figure out like what are the key units in their army, if there are any, or if there's like a glaring weakness in their composition. And then if they overextend with that unit, you can kill it, and then you can just start spamming the unit they were supposed to counter and run them over using that. If they keep fighting in that area, it's highly likely they lose way too many units and then they lose the game. Okay, so it's my turn getting vision, right? I use my tank to like hit stuff. I attack from the mountain, very important. Um, there's also a reason why I'm not popping my power yet. The reason is because the extra damage isn't really gonna help me get any kills anyway. But if I pop the superpower after I do some of these attacks, then all my units which took some damage will end up with 10 HP. So that's really, really good. And then now I pop my superpower. I think it was actually a mistake to move this AA first. You definitely want to move your units on Andy's superpower after he pops the super, not before.
I
Because
also,
this AA could have been here.
I also got a question. Why didn't
Yeah.
you use that copter there to hit mine, knowing you had your super? You could repair any damage dealt to it that could give more value to your super. Why didn't you do
Well,
it?
that's a great question. Because this map is 2 towers, and Andy gets 130 attack normally with his superpower, meaning my copters have 150 attack. Um, what that also means is that any copter on copter hit I take when my superpower is up is a one-hit KO. So what's better than taking chip damage and then repairing it? Not taking any chip damage because I killed your copter in one hit.
Okay, okay, okay. I like it. Good response.
Right? So like as you can see here, I take out the tank, take out the AA, well, almost. And then here, boom, it's dead. Right? So this is also why the Grim COP is also really scary when he has copters. I'm pretty sure his copters will kill any copter on his COP turn.
I think with two tower he doesn't even need his power.
Yeah, with 2 towers, Grim can just kill copters in one hit. Like they can actually counter copters in a way. And then I get a good engagement on your medium tank with my Neo. From a city, so like I don't think I even take any damage here. And I finish it off with a tank,
Oh,
and then I take out your artillery, right? And then in this position, you're kind of screwed. And again, this is just because like you didn't have like all the infantry that died here should have been helping to protect your vehicles, so that this artillery can die, so that I can just dive you and end the game at turn 14. So like all of the small mistakes you do, like throwing away units a bit earlier in the game, eventually add up to like making you lose even faster. Whereas if you didn't do those things, potentially like maybe you can come back in the game versus a weaker opponent.
you know, when I have seen that unfolding, I was laughing and crying at the same time. I was like, no, artillery shot, you die.
And then I think you resigned this turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was, day 7, day 5 APC, I think day 4, into like a Neo tank at day 8. Pretty interesting opening. Not perhaps the most viable, like probably playing normal is still better. But if you want to like be interesting, be fun, don't just do like boring normal builds all the time. This is something you can consider.
And that's funny. When you do that kind of opening, you need to know what you're doing. Because when I tried this opening with someone else, it did not work. Anyway, is there anything else you would like to add up before we leave?
No, that was pretty much it. I've been considering making a YouTube channel. I'm not sure. I haven't made the first video yet, but it's probably going to be focused on like openings similar to this. In the fog pool where we do really non-standard stuff, or maybe just like exploring, how I think optimal openings go on certain global league maps. So just like help players, get better at the game. And also because I'm running out of people to play against at my elo level, like seriously, I need more people high up there. So like, get your elo up, guys, so I can play more people.
I cannot wait to subscribe to your channel, man. I've been telling you, it will be good content. I know it, and just the knowledge and the wisdom you have can make up for a lot of things. So that's good. That's always nice to have you. Thank you very much for coming by again. And I cannot wait to do more games and more replays with you because you are a great guest and You have good knowledge on the game.
Always a pleasure to be here. Yeah, excited to look forward to the next game.
So guys, like, comment, and subscribe. We will see each other in future video. Have a great day.